My ex-husband's new wife demanded her share of my family business, but my lawyer had the perfect counter. I never expected to see her standing at the gates of my company. It was a crisp Tuesday morning in October when my assistant Sarah's voice came through the intercom, tension evident. "Miss Hartwell, there's someone at reception insisting on seeing you. A Vanessa Collins. She says you'll know who she is." The name hit me like ice water. Vanessa Collins. My ex-husband's trophy wife. The woman he left me for 3 years ago. "Tell her I'm in meetings all day," I replied, feeling my jaw tighten. 15 minutes later, Sarah knocked on my office door. "I'm sorry, Miss Hartwell, but she's refusing to leave. She says she'll wait all day if necessary or cause a scene." She lowered her voice. "She has legal papers with her." Legal papers. Of course she did. I caught my reflection in the window overlooking the manufacturing floor. At 42, I looked better than I had at 35 when Damon left. My chestnut hair was cut in a confident bob, silver threads at the temples that I refused to color. Badges of survival. I straightened my charcoal blazer and nodded. "Send her in. And stay close to the intercom." When the door opened, the first thing I noticed was the overwhelming scent of expensive perfume. Vanessa Collins Hartwell stood there, 11 years my junior, looking like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Designer everything, from sunglasses pushed atop her blonde head to the red-soled shoes. A far cry from the bartender Damon had introduced as his friend all those years ago. "Alexandra," she said, her voice sugary with fake warmth. "Thank you for making time." I didn't offer my hand. "What can I do for you, Vanessa?" She sat without being invited, crossing long legs and placing a leather portfolio on my desk. "I'll get straight to the point. I'm here about Damon's interests in Hartwell Industries." I actually laughed at that. Damon has no interests in my family's company. That was clearly established in our divorce settlement. Her smile didn't falter. "That's not entirely accurate." She slid a document across my desk. "As his wife, I'm entitled to review all marital assets and their current valuations. According to our legal team, there are community property considerations that weren't properly addressed in your hasty divorce." There was nothing hasty about it. The divorce took 18 months, involved 3 mediators, and cost me more in legal fees than my first factory expansion. Yet somehow, Vanessa continued, examining her manicure, certain elements of Damon's rightful compensation for his contributions to Hartwell's growth during your marriage were overlooked. Now I understood. Damon had spent the divorce trying to claim he'd been instrumental to the company's success, despite having no official role beyond husband of the CEO. His lawyer had tried arguing he provided strategic guidance and emotional support worth millions. "Let me be clear," I said, leaning forward. "Damon contributed exactly nothing to this company except showing up to holiday parties drunk and hitting on my female executives. He was compensated generously in the divorce. Too generously, according to everyone but him." Vanessa's expression hardened. "That's not how he tells it." "I'm sure it isn't." She opened the portfolio, producing more documents. "Damon consulted with you daily on business matters. He entertained clients. He accompanied you to industry events. He sacrificed his own career aspirations to support yours. All of this constitutes unpaid labor with tangible value. So, what exactly are you here for, Vanessa? Money? A position?" Her smile returned, sharper now. "Initially, we're requesting a complete financial audit of Hartwell Industries, focusing on growth periods during your marriage. After that, we'll be seeking appropriate compensation, likely in the form of equity shares or a settlement based on the company's current valuation." The audacity was breathtaking. "And if I say no? Then our attorneys will file for emergency injunctive relief, potentially freezing certain company assets while litigation proceeds." She stood, smoothing her dress. "We'd prefer to handle this amicably, Alexandra. For everyone's sake." "Everyone meaning you and Damon." "Of course," she replied. "Though I imagine your shareholders and clients wouldn't appreciate the publicity of a drawn-out legal battle, especially one involving allegations of marital fraud and hidden assets." "Is that a threat, Vanessa?" "It's a reality check." Damon was part of your life when this company became what it is today. He deserves his share. She placed a business card on my desk. Our lawyer will expect to hear from your team by Friday. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. After she left, I sat motionless, staring at the card. Joseph Blackwell, Family Law and Asset Recovery. I'd never heard of him, which meant he was either new to town or not good enough to be on my radar. I pressed the intercom button. Sarah, cancel my next meeting and get Eleanor Palmer on the phone immediately. Eleanor had been my divorce attorney, brilliant, ruthless, and one of the few people who truly understood what I'd been through with Damon. Within 10 minutes, her voice came through my speaker. Alexandra? What's happened? Vanessa Collins just walked into my office demanding a share of my company. She's threatening legal action by Friday. Eleanor's laugh was short and sharp. The audacity of that man never ceases to amaze me. Don't panic. Forward me whatever she left with you, and don't respond to anything until we've talked. She mentioned freezing assets, Eleanor. A common scare tactic. No judge would grant that without substantial evidence, which they don't have. We beat him once. We'll do it again. After we hung up, I walked to the window, overlooking the factory floor. 3 generations of Hartwells had built this place. I'd modernized it, doubled our workforce, developed patents that changed our industry. And Damon, who'd spent our marriage complaining about my long hours while spending my money, thought he deserved credit. Not this time, Damon, I whispered. Not one more thing for me. I returned to my desk and picked up the phone. Sarah, cancel everything for the rest of the day. Then get me every financial record for my marriage to Damon. Every tax return, every settlement document, everything. If Damon and his wife wanted war, I'd give them one. This time, I wouldn't be caught unprepared. I hated revisiting that chapter of my life. The divorce files filled 3 large banker's boxes that my brother Michael helped carry into my home office that evening. Each cardboard container was like a time capsule of pain, labeled in my own handwriting with dates that marked the slow dissolution of what I'd once thought was a solid marriage. You sure you want to do this tonight? Michael asked, concern etched on his face. At 45, he looked more like our father every day, same worried eyes, same protective instinct. I don't have a choice. Eleanor's coming at 7, and we need to be prepared. He lingered in the doorway. Want me to stay? I shook my head. Go home to Lisa and the kids. I've got this. Once alone, I poured myself 2 fingers of bourbon and opened the first box. The familiar scent of old paper and file folders brought it all back. The late nights reviewing financial disclosures, the mornings spent in mediators' offices, the afternoons crying in my car where no employees could see me. Eleanor arrived exactly at 7, dressed in her usual impeccable suit despite the late hour. She'd brought an associate, a young woman named Priya with sharp eyes and a tablet full of notes. Start from the beginning, Eleanor said as we sorted through the documents. When did you first notice Damon might be planning something? I sipped my bourbon. We've been having problems for about a year. He wanted me to scale back at work, said I was neglecting him. I laughed bitterly. Meanwhile, he'd quit his job at the architecture firm, claiming he wanted to find his passion. His passion apparently involved spending my money on golf memberships and weekend trips I was too busy to join. Eleanor nodded, remembering. And the bartender? Vanessa. I found text messages. When I confronted him, he didn't even deny it. Said I drove him to it by putting my company first. I pulled out a folder labeled Asset Division Final. That's when he first started claiming he deserved a piece of Hartwell Industries. Priya looked up from her tablet. On what grounds? Supposedly, he provided invaluable business insights and client relationship management. In reality, he occasionally chatted with clients at company parties while getting drunk on expensive scotch. Eleanor flipped through the settlement paperwork. We shut that down quickly. Judge Coleman saw right through it. So why is he trying again now? I asked. And through Vanessa? Probably money troubles, Eleanor said. From what you've told me about Damon, he's not the type to maintain steady income. And Vanessa seems expensive. I nodded, remembering the designer outfit and jewelry. Very. We continued excavating the divorce history, piecing together the financial settlement. Damon had received our vacation home in Aspen, which he'd probably mortgaged by now, our investment portfolio, likely depleted, and a cash settlement that should have lasted years with proper management, but probably hadn't. Around midnight, Priya spoke up. "Ms. Hartwell, did you keep records of payments made to your ex-husband after the divorce?" I frowned. There weren't supposed to be any. The settlement was final, one-time payment, property division, done. Eleanor looked up sharply. "Priya, what are you seeing?" The young lawyer turned her tablet toward us. "In the supplemental agreements, there's a promissory note. Mr. Hartwell received a business loan from Hartwell Industries for a restaurant venture in 2017. I blinked, memory dawning. The gastropub. I'd forgotten about that. It was before things got bad between us. He wanted to open a restaurant with a chef friend. The board wouldn't approve corporate funds for a non-core business, so we structured it as a personal loan from me, secured by company shares I owned personally." Eleanor grabbed the tablet, eyes scanning rapidly. "With repayment due in full after 5 years if the business failed to reach profitability benchmarks." She looked up at me. "Did the restaurant succeed?" I shook my head. "It closed within 18 months. Damon blamed the location, the chef, the concept, everyone but himself." Priya was tapping rapidly on her tablet. "According to this, the loan amount was $185,000, with accrued interest of approximately $40,000 by now. And was this loan formally forgiven in the divorce?" Eleanor asked, already digging through the final settlement papers. I tried to remember. Those months had been such a blur of legal documents and emotional exhaustion. "I don't think so. We focused on the properties and the cash settlement. This was a separate legal agreement." Eleanor's eyes gleamed as she found what she was looking for. "It's not here. The loan obligation isn't mentioned anywhere in the divorce settlement." She looked up at me with the first real smile I'd seen all evening. "Alexandra, do you realize what this means?" I did. A slow warmth spread through me that had nothing to do with the bourbon. "He still owes me over $200,000. "Not just owes you," Eleanor said, her smile turning predatory. "He's in default, and as his current spouse in a community property state. Vanessa shares liability for his debts." Priya finished, looking impressed. Eleanor closed the file with a decisive snap. "I think it's time we schedule a meeting with Miss Collins and her lawyer. But first, we need to document everything about this loan. The original agreement, proof it wasn't repaid, and evidence it wasn't addressed in the divorce." For the first time since Vanessa had strutted into my office, I felt a genuine smile form. So instead of me owing them anything, "They owe you," Eleanor confirmed. "And we're going to collect." She walked into my boardroom like she owned it. 1 week after her surprise visit, Vanessa returned with reinforcements. Her lawyer, Joseph Blackwell, was everything I expected: mid-50s, expensive suit, the practiced smile of a man who made his living on other people's misery. But the unexpected addition was Damon himself, hovering behind them with the nervous energy of a man who knew he was in over his head. I hadn't seen my ex-husband in nearly 2 years. Time hadn't been kind to him. His once athletic frame now carried an extra 20 pounds, and his designer clothes couldn't hide the slight puffiness of someone drinking too much and sleeping too little. When our eyes met, he looked away first. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting," Blackwell began, setting his leather briefcase on the polished mahogany table. "I believe we can resolve this situation amicably." Eleanor, seated beside me, smiled thinly. "That's our hope as well." I said nothing, watching Vanessa as she surveyed my boardroom, her eyes lingering on the original paintings on the walls, the crystal water carafes, the subtle displays of wealth that I'd earned through years of hard work. "Before we begin," Blackwell continued, "I'd like to outline our position." He withdrew a bound document from his briefcase. "We have compiled extensive evidence of Mr. Hartwell's contributions to Hartwell Industries during his marriage to Ms. Hartwell." "Alexandra," Vanessa corrected with false sweetness. "We're all friends here." "We're not friends," I said quietly, my first words since they'd entered. "And it's Ms. Hartwell." Vanessa's smile faltered slightly before she recovered. Of course. Blackwell cleared his throat. As I was saying, during the 8 years of their marriage, Mr. Hartwell provided substantial value to the company through client relationship management, strategic input, and support that allowed Ms. Hartwell to focus entirely on business growth. Eleanor accepted the document, but didn't open it. And you believe this entitles him to what exactly? A comprehensive accounting, followed by fair compensation, Blackwell replied. We're prepared to file a motion for a full audit of the company's growth during the marriage years, with specific focus on client acquisition and revenue increases that Mr. Hartwell directly influenced. Vanessa leaned forward, confidence radiating from her. We're not trying to be difficult. We just want what's fair. Fair, I repeated, letting the word hang in the air. Damon finally spoke, his voice less assured than I remembered. Look, Alexandra, this isn't personal. It's business. I almost laughed at the irony. You made it personal when you emptied our joint account the day you left. He had the decency to look uncomfortable. That was a misunderstanding. A $50,000 misunderstanding? Blackwell intervened smoothly. Ancient history. We're here to discuss current matters. He turned to Eleanor. My clients are prepared to move forward with legal action if necessary, including requesting a temporary freeze on certain company assets, pending discovery. On what grounds? Eleanor asked, sounding more curious than concerned. We have reason to believe there may be commingling of marital and business assets that weren't properly accounted for in the divorce settlement. Vanessa added, Damon has records. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. I see. And these records were conveniently unavailable during the 18-month divorce proceedings? Blackwell's smile tightened. New evidence has come to light. How fascinating, Eleanor replied. She slid a thin folder across the table. While we're sharing evidence, you might find this interesting. Vanessa reached for it first, flipping it open with manicured fingers. Her confident expression gave way to confusion as she scanned the contents. What is this? She asked, looking between the document and me. That, I said calmly, is a promissory note for $185,000 plus accrued interest, signed by Damon in 2017 for a business loan from Hartwell Industries. A loan that was never repaid. Damon's face paled. That was forgiven in the divorce. Actually, it wasn't, Eleanor corrected. We've reviewed the entire settlement. This obligation remains outstanding and in default. She pulled out another document. Here's the amortization schedule showing the current amount due, $226,450. Blackwell reached for the papers, professional mask slipping as he scanned them. This should have been disclosed during settlement negotiations. It was disclosed, Eleanor countered. It was listed in the initial financial disclosures as a business loan. Your client simply failed to address it in his settlement proposals, and given the more substantial assets being divided, it wasn't specifically mentioned in the final agreement. Vanessa turned to Damon, her voice sharp. You told me everything was settled. I thought it was, he muttered, not meeting her eyes. Eleanor continued smoothly. As I'm sure Mr. Blackwell has advised you, in your state, financial obligations incurred by either spouse during marriage are considered shared marital debt. Vanessa's head snapped up. I'm not responsible for debts from his previous marriage. Actually, Eleanor said, you are responsible for debts he brought into your marriage that remain unpaid, especially when you're actively seeking to claim benefits from that same marital period. The conference room fell silent as the implications sank in. Vanessa's face had lost its confident glow, and Damon looked like he might be sick. Blackwell recovered first. This is clearly an attempt to distract from the legitimate claims my clients are pursuing. Is it? I finally spoke, leaning forward. Because from where I sit, you came here demanding money from me based on dubious claims, while conveniently forgetting about money legitimately owed to me. I focused my gaze on Vanessa. You wanted to talk about fairness? Let's start with paying your debts. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. This is ridiculous. Damon, tell them this loan thing is nonsense. But Damon remained silent, staring at the table. Eleanor gathered her papers. We'll expect payment arrangements to be made within 30 days, or we'll pursue all legal remedies available, including asset seizure." She stood. "I believe this concludes our business today." As they filed out, Damon lingered behind. "Alexandra, we should talk privately. We have nothing to discuss." I cut him off. "Anything you need to say, you can say through your lawyer." When the door closed behind them, I exhaled slowly, tension draining from my shoulders. Eleanor smiled. "That went well." "It did," I agreed. "But it's not over yet." "No," she said, gathering her files. "But round one definitely goes to us." I watched her confidence crumble in real time. 2 weeks after our boardroom confrontation, we met again, this time in a courtroom. Judge Marilyn Hoffman, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s with a reputation for cutting through legal theatrics, presided over the emergency hearing that Blackwell had requested. "Your Honor," Blackwell began, "my clients are simply seeking an equitable accounting of marital business contributions that were overlooked during divorce proceedings. We're requesting a temporary restraining order to prevent Ms. Hartwell from making any major business decisions or asset transfers until a full audit can be conducted." Judge Hoffman peered at him over her reading glasses. "And why is this suddenly an emergency, Mr. Blackwell? The divorce was finalized 3 years ago. My clients only recently discovered the extent to which Mr. Hartwell's contributions were undervalued," Blackwell replied smoothly. "And there's concern that Ms. Hartwell may be preparing to sell or restructure the company to deliberately obscure its value." I felt my blood boil at the accusation, but Eleanor squeezed my arm lightly, a silent reminder to stay calm. Vanessa sat on the opposite side of the courtroom looking immaculate in a conservative navy suit, her blonde hair pulled back in a sleek chignon. She radiated confidence again, as if our previous meeting had never happened. Beside her, Damon fidgeted with his tie, avoiding my gaze. "Miss Palmer," Judge Hoffman turned to Eleanor. "Your response." Eleanor rose gracefully. "Your Honor, this petition is nothing more than a transparent attempt at financial extortion. Mr. Hartwell received a generous settlement in the divorce, which he and his current wife have apparently exhausted. Now they're inventing claims to extract more." She approached the bench with a folder. "What's more, they're conveniently overlooking a substantial debt Mr. Hartwell owes to my client, a fully documented business loan that remains in default." Judge Hoffman accepted the folder, reviewing its contents with a practiced eye. "Mr. Blackwell, were you aware of this loan?" Blackwell hesitated just long enough to be noticeable. "Your Honor, that loan was addressed during the divorce proceedings." "It was not," Eleanor interrupted firmly. "And we have the complete divorce file to prove it. This obligation remains outstanding, with no payments made in over 5 years." The judge turned her attention to the documents, the courtroom silent except for the soft rustle of papers. I watched Vanessa's face, noting the slight tightening around her eyes, the rigid posture that revealed her growing unease. After several minutes, Judge Hoffman looked up. "I see a promissory note signed by Mr. Hartwell for $185,000, with standard interest provisions, and no evidence this was ever resolved or forgiven." She directed her gaze at Damon. "Mr. Hartwell, do you dispute that you received this loan?" Damon cleared his throat. "No, Your Honor, but I believe it was included in the overall settlement." "It was not," Judge Hoffman stated flatly, tapping the divorce papers. "I've reviewed the final decree. There is no mention of this obligation being satisfied or forgiven." Vanessa whispered urgently to Blackwell, who stood. "Your Honor, even if this loan exists, it's completely separate from our petition regarding Mr. Hartwell's business contributions." "Is it?" Judge Hoffman asked. "You're claiming Mr. Hartwell has an interest in Hartwell Industries that wasn't properly valued during the divorce. Meanwhile, he has an outstanding obligation to that same company that he hasn't paid. These matters seem inherently connected." She turned to Eleanor. "Ms. Palmer, I assume you filed a counterclaim?" "We have, Your Honor," Eleanor confirmed, presenting another document. "We're seeking immediate repayment of the loan plus accrued interest, totaling $226,450. Vanessa's face drained of color as Eleanor continued. "Furthermore, As Mr. Hartwell has been in default since before his marriage to Mrs. Collins Hartwell, and as they reside in a community property state, this debt is now their shared marital liability. The courtroom fell silent. Vanessa's composure finally cracked completely, her mouth opening in shocked disbelief. She turned to Damon, whispering furiously. "Mrs. Collins Hartwell," Judge Hoffman addressed Vanessa directly, "are you aware that by pursuing claims related to your husband's previous marriage, you potentially expose your own assets to claims from that same period?" Vanessa straightened, struggling to regain her poise. "Your Honor, I wasn't involved in my husband's previous marriage or his financial decisions then. Unfortunately, that's not how community property works," Judge Hoffman replied. "You can't claim the benefits without accepting the liabilities." Blackwell attempted to recover. "Your Honor, regardless of this loan issue, my clients still have legitimate claims regarding undervalued business contributions." "Mr. Blackwell," the judge interrupted, "I've reviewed your petition and supporting evidence. What you've presented amounts to Mr. Hartwell occasionally attending business functions and claiming he provided strategic advice. This falls drastically short of establishing any ownership interest in Hartwell Industries." She shook her head. "I'm denying your request for a temporary restraining order." Turning to Eleanor, she continued, "As for the counterclaim regarding the unpaid loan, I'm granting Ms. Hartwell's petition. The loan is valid, was never satisfied, and is in default. Mr. and Mrs. Collins Hartwell are jointly liable for the full amount." Damon slumped in his chair while Vanessa sat rigidly beside him, her knuckles white as she gripped her designer handbag. "Furthermore," Judge Hoffman added, "I'm ordering a lien against the Collins Hartwell real estate holdings to secure this debt and freezing their joint investment accounts up to the amount owed." Vanessa's gasp was audible throughout the courtroom. If payment arrangements are not made within 30 days, Ms. Hartwell may proceed with asset seizure. The judge fixed Blackwell with a stern look. "And Mr. Blackwell, I strongly suggest you advise your clients to drop any further claims against Ms. Hartwell, as they appear wholly without merit." With a final tap of her gavel, the hearing was over. Outside the courtroom, Eleanor squeezed my shoulder. "That couldn't have gone better if we'd scripted it ourselves." I nodded, watching Vanessa and Damon arguing in hushed, urgent tones down the hallway. The sweet taste of vindication flowed through me, washing away years of bitterness. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now," Eleanor smiled, "we wait for them to try to squirm out of paying, or watch them scramble to protect their assets from each other." The tables had turned, and fast. 3 days after the hearing, I was reviewing quarterly projections when Sarah buzzed my intercom. "Ms. Hartwell, Damon is in reception." "No appointment. He says it's urgent." My first instinct was to send him away, but curiosity won out. "Security escort only. Meeting room 3, not my office." I made him wait 15 minutes before entering the small conference room. Damon sat hunched at the table, looking like he hadn't slept in days. The designer suit was gone, replaced by khakis and a rumpled button-down. When he saw me, he stood abruptly. "Alexandra, thank you for seeing me." "You have 5 minutes," I replied, remaining standing. "Eleanor advised against meeting without her present, so make it count." He nodded nervously. "I came alone. Vanessa doesn't know I'm here." That caught my attention. "Trouble in paradise?" "It's bad, Alex." He ran a hand through his hair. The judge froze our accounts. "Vanessa's furious. She's saying I tricked her, that I never told her about the loan." "Did you?" He looked away. "Not exactly. It was so long ago, and honestly, I thought it was wrapped into the divorce settlement." I raised an eyebrow. $250,000 just slipped your mind?" "You don't understand," he said, voice strained. "She's threatening to divorce me if I don't fix this. She's already moved into the guest room." "That sounds like a personal problem. Please, Alex." His voice cracked. "I can't pay that amount. Everything's in both our names now, the house, the cars. Her spending is out of control. We're leveraged to the hilt." I studied him, trying to reconcile this desperate man with the husband I'd once loved. "Why are you telling me this?" "I need time. Or a payment plan. Something." He leaned forward. I'll sign whatever you want saying I have no claim to Hartwell Industries. I'll make Vanessa drop everything. Just don't take our house. Our house. I repeated. You mean the house you bought with her after selling the Aspen property I let you keep? He flinched. Yes. A cruel part of me wanted to let him suffer, to watch him lose everything just as he'd tried to do to me. But another part, the businesswoman who made difficult decisions daily, saw an opportunity. I'll have Eleanor draft an agreement. I said finally. You and Vanessa both sign a complete release of any claims against me or Hartwell Industries, now or in the future. In exchange, I'll accept a structured repayment plan for the loan. Relief flooded his face. Thank you, Alex. I'm not finished, I interrupted coldly. I want a formal, notarized admission that you lied during our divorce proceedings about your contributions to the company. And I want the truth about why you're suddenly claiming ownership interest after all this time. His eyes darted away. It's not important now. It's the only thing that's important, I countered. No confession, no deal. Damon slumped, defeated. It was Vanessa's idea. She found out how successful Hartwell had become after reading about your new defense contract in the Business Journal. She kept saying I was owed a piece of it, that I'd been there during the foundation years. He looked up, shame evident. We're broke, Alex. The restaurant's failed. The investment account you left me is empty. And you thought you'd just come back for more. He nodded miserably. Vanessa's lawyer said we had a shot based on some recent case precedent. I knew it was wrong, but... He trailed off. But you did it anyway. I checked my watch. Your 5 minutes are up. I'll have Eleanor contact Blackwell with terms. As I reached the door, he called after me. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Not just for this, but for everything. I paused, not turning around. Save your apologies for Vanessa. You'll need them. The next day, Eleanor called with news. Blackwell wants a meeting. Apparently, there are some concerning developments he needs to discuss. When we arrived at Blackwell's office, the tension was palpable. Vanessa sat rigidly in a chair, as far from Damon as possible while still being in the same room. Her eyes were red-rimmed despite flawless makeup. Thank you for coming, Blackwell began, looking uncomfortable. Some information has come to light that affects our proceedings. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. What kind of information? Financial discrepancies, Blackwell replied, sliding a folder across the desk. Mr. Hartwell appears to have misrepresented certain facts, not only to Ms. Hartwell during their divorce, but to Mrs. Collins Hartwell during their marriage. Vanessa's voice was ice. He's been hiding money, accounts I didn't know about, transactions that don't make sense. Damon stared at the floor. It's not what it looks like. Really? Vanessa snapped. Because it looks like you withdrew $75,000 from our home equity line without telling me. It looks like you've been gambling online. It looks like you lied to me, just like you lied to her. Eleanor reviewed the documents, her expression professional despite the drama unfolding. These are serious allegations, Mr. Blackwell. How does this affect our current situation? Blackwell sighed. Mrs. Collins Hartwell is filing for legal separation and is prepared to cooperate fully regarding the loan repayment. She's also withdrawing any claims against Hartwell Industries. I glanced at Vanessa, surprised by this development. She met my gaze directly. I want nothing to do with him or his debts, she stated flatly. I've consulted separate counsel. I'm protecting what's mine. And what about the joint liability already established by the court? Eleanor asked. I'm prepared to pay my legal portion, Vanessa replied, in exchange for a release from any further obligation. I have documentation proving I had no knowledge of or benefit from the original loan. As they negotiated details, I watched the final collapse of Damon's scheme. Not only had he failed to claim part of my company, but he destroyed his second marriage in the process. The man who once swaggered through life on charm and my success now sat broken, his lies exposed on all fronts. When we left, Eleanor was smiling. Well, that was unexpected but advantageous. With Vanessa turning on him, we'll recover at least half the debt immediately. Plus, we have both their signatures on a complete release of claims. And Damon? I asked. Eleanor shrugged. From what I gathered, he's facing not just divorce, but potential fraud charges if Vanessa pursues them. His house of cards is collapsing spectacularly. For the first time in years, I felt truly free of Damon's shadow. Poetic justice never felt so sweet. 6 months passed since the courtroom confrontation. Spring arrived with renewal, both for nature and for me. Sitting on my office balcony overlooking the manufacturing floor, I smiled as I watched employees moving purposefully below. Hartwell Industries hadn't just survived the chaos, we'd thrived. "The first quarter numbers are in," Michael said, joining me with a tablet in hand. "We're up 23% from last year." I accepted the tablet, scrolling through the financial report. The defense contract is performing beyond projections. "And the new medical devices division?" Michael asked. "Regulatory approval came through yesterday. We start production next month." I handed back the tablet. "We did it, Mike. Everything Dad and Grandpa built, everything I fought for, it's secure now." He squeezed my shoulder. "It always was. You just needed to believe it." My intercom buzzed. "Ms. Hartwell, Eleanor Palmer is here for your lunch." Eleanor had become more than my lawyer over these months. She'd become a friend. After everything we'd weathered together, our victory lunches had become a monthly tradition. "Send her up," I replied. Eleanor entered carrying her signature leather briefcase and a bottle of champagne. "I thought we'd celebrate properly today." "Good news?" I asked, though her smile had already answered. "The best." She set down the bottle and pulled documents from her briefcase. "The court approved final settlement from Vanessa this morning. She's paid her portion of the debt in full, plus penalties, in exchange for a complete liability release." Michael raised an eyebrow. "She had that kind of money?" "Apparently," Eleanor replied. "She had a trust fund she'd been hiding from Damon." Ironic, considering his financial deceptions. "And Damon?" I asked, trying to sound merely curious rather than invested. Eleanor's smile turned satisfyingly vindictive. "That's the truly delicious part. The forensic accountant Vanessa hired discovered Damon had been skimming from their joint accounts for years. When confronted, he claimed he was borrowing to cover gambling debts." She laid out more papers. "Vanessa's divorce is nearly final. She's getting everything: the house, cars, remaining investments. Damon didn't even contest it after her lawyer threatened to pursue criminal charges for financial fraud." "Where is he now?" Michael asked. "Last I heard, he's living in a studio apartment and working as a sales associate at a high-end men's clothing store." Eleanor looked at me. "Quite a fall for a man who once drove a Maserati on your dime." I should have felt vindicated, even gleeful. Instead, I felt something unexpected: peace. The anger that had fueled me for years had burned itself out, leaving clarity in its wake. "Sarah told me he's called the office several times," I admitted. "I've been having her block the calls." "Good," Michael said firmly. "You don't owe him anything." "I know." I walked to the window, gazing out at the city skyline. "That's why I'm finally considering his request." Eleanor frowned. "What request?"
He wants to meet.
"One last time." I turned back to face them. "To return some family items he took during the divorce. Photos, my grandmother's recipes, some personal mementos." "I can handle that," Michael offered immediately. I shook my head.
No.
I need to do this myself, to finally close that chapter completely. 2 days later, I waited at a quiet cafe downtown. I'd chosen a public place deliberately, neutral territory, with witnesses. When Damon arrived, I barely recognized him. Gone was the confident swagger, the expensive wardrobe, the practiced charm. The man who approached my table looked diminished, carrying a cardboard box and the weight of consequences. "Alexandra," he said softly, "thank you for meeting me." I gestured to the chair across from me. "You said you had some things of mine." He nodded, placing the box between us. "Your grandmother's recipe book, the family photo albums, your father's cufflinks." He looked down. "Things I should never have taken." I opened the box carefully, confirming the contents. "Why did you?" "To hurt you," he admitted, his honesty startling us both. "I was angry that you were succeeding without me." that you didn't need me the way I needed you. You never needed me, Damon. You needed what I could provide.
He didn't argue.
You're right. I've had a lot of time to think about who I've been, what I've done. He looked up, eyes hollow. I lost everything. Both marriages. My reputation. Vanessa's, making sure no one in our social circle will touch me. I closed the box. And you think I care about this, why? I don't expect you to care, he replied. I just wanted to apologize.
Properly.
Without asking for anything in return. I studied him, searching for the manipulation, the angle. For once, I couldn't find it. Apology noted. I said finally. Is there anything else? He shook his head. Just you built something remarkable, Alexandra. Something I never appreciated or understood. I hope you know that now. As he stood to leave, I felt the last chain binding me to our painful history finally break. Damon, I called as he reached the door. He turned, surprise evident. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. He gave a sad smile. I hope so too. Goodbye, Alexandra. That evening, I sat in my office as sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. On my desk sat the open box of recovered treasures. My history, my legacy, returned where it belonged. Sarah knocked gently. Working late again? I smiled. Not tonight. Actually, I'm finally ready to take that vacation we've been discussing. Her eyes widened. Really? 2 whole weeks?
Yes.
The company will survive without me. I closed my grandmother's recipe book gently. I think it's time I learned to enjoy what I've built, not just keep fighting for it. As I drove home that night, I felt lighter than I had in years. Damon and Vanessa had disappeared from my life, their scheme to take what was mine backfiring spectacularly. My business was thriving. My future was entirely my own. Some might call it revenge, but I preferred to think of it as restoration, of justice, of balance, and finally, of peace.